Um, Good evening, students. Welcome once again to our career guidance webinar series, and especially for today's program. It's really nice to see a lot of familiar names, very heartening, in fact. And as you all know, our club has put together this program. They've curated it after consultation with some of our academicians from Rotary, as well as from some of your own colleges. So we strongly believe that this program will add value to all of you. So welcome to those who have been a part of this series, and also to those who have joined today for this session. As you all know, today we have a plethora of career choices, from fashion designing to data modeling, from finance to supply chain. People really don't have to, start a career and continue in the same field. It's not necessary that you have to be only take the technical route or the managerial route. Today you are not, you don't have any boundaries, and you're really spoiled for choices. And this indeed is very interesting and exciting times. And given this context, our club decided to conduct a webinar series where we will get some of the best experts from across various fields to come and share their experiences. And hopefully, you will have some takeaways by end of our series. So welcome all of you once again. We have a brilliant speaker for today. I'm going to request my colleague Mithun Pai to introduce him and take it forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Suman. Welcome, students, and Mr. Ravi. So today's topic is actually, if you have seen the webinar flyer which Suman has sent, it is on problem solving. And yesterday, the speaker, Ms. Ramya Venkatraman, also clearly mentioned on how this problem solving and innovation is one of the key aspects in a startup. So that is where we are now coming up with these kind of topics. You have to hear from one of the pioneers, or probably I would say one of the person who has explored this in a different manner. So we would hear from Mr. Ravi. So before that, I would like to introduce Mr. Ravi, who's the speaker for today. Mr. Ravi is a BTech from IIT Delhi and an MSc, and holds an MSc from ISC Bangalore. He is an independent consultant who's working on applying model-based data analytic techniques to aerospace and other complex systems, mainly into the understanding the areas of controls and diagnostics, and mostly into prognostics as well. So he has a PhD from University of Minnesota and an MBA from University of Connecticut. He is now working as an independent consultant, as I mentioned. Before that, he had worked at Meggitt, United Technologies Corporation, and GE Company. He is also an active member in PHM Society and within various SAE technical committees dealing with AI, that is artificial intelligence and digital transformation, prognostics and health management, and electric propulsion. So he currently serves as the editor-in-chief of the SAE International Aerospace Journal and is part of the editorial board of 2 other journals. He has visiting faculty positions at the University of Connecticut and at Cranfield University. He's also an author who's authored 6 books, including Electric Flight Technology, The Unfolding of a New Future. In addition to these books, Dr. Rajamani is an author of many books, book chapters, journal papers, conference proceedings, and has several patents. So with this, I would like to introduce Mr. Ravi Rajamani to you and would like to hear from you, Mr. Ravi. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That was very kind of you. Thanks, Suman, for inviting me, and Sushila. I don't know if she has joined, but she was one of the first. Sushila and I worked at IIT Delhi together.
She's not yet joined.
That's okay.
Said she would be joining today.
Yeah, that's fine. So we go back a long way. So when she asked, even though I know very little about this topic, I decided I have to volunteer. So the reason I say I don't know much about this topic is only because I come from a very engineering background, very technical background. Someone told you that all kinds of fields are open to you. That is true, but my experience has been mainly technical. But I will try and give you some examples of non-technical as well. Those who are not speaking, if you could mute, that would be nice, because otherwise we're getting a lot of interference. Thank you, that's very nice. Okay, so I'm still getting a lot of interference. Okay, thank you. All right, so what is innovation? The classic definition is making something new or unique, or changing an existing product in a unique manner. You have to transform something or discover something new. There are two major ways, obviously, that this can happen. One is unexpectedly, which is really not, which is great, but that's not the topic of today's, focus of today's talk. The other one is really comes from a need or a problem that needs to be solved. And so that is a deliberate way of doing innovation. And that's what I'll concentrate a lot more on today. So the 7 sources of innovation, according to Peter Drucker, who is considered one of the leaders of management, is necessity, obviously, new knowledge or innovation, new knowledge to innovate, change in the market structure, change in demographics, in other words, how the population changes, and certain sections of the population become more important. That leads to innovation. Changing perception and incongruity between what is currently there and what you perceive. So the ingredients to innovation can be summarized, in my opinion. Again, I confess I talk a lot more from a technical perspective. So you have to take and translate this more into your area of expertise or your field. But there are some common characteristics, regardless of whether you're talking technical innovation or any other kind of innovation. You have to be open to ideas and don't close yourself off from any source of information. Don't be afraid to ask others for their opinions, for their help, especially people who are not who are more experienced than you in the field. Do a lot of study, use past knowledge, and most importantly, use the failures that have occurred in the past, because you can learn from them. And this is a common problem, certainly within the technical field. They want to do everything themselves. So if it is not invented here, they are not interested. That's a bad way of going about innovating. Be very, very open, able to borrow from different fields and others. I mean, don't steal, but borrow. Okay, so I'm going to give you some examples of what innovative ideas have been in the past. I'll start actually with an unexpected one. I don't know if any one of you has ever heard of a little thing called Silly Putty. I'll give you a little example of it.
What molds into silly animals and silly shapes?
Silly putty.
What bounces like a ball?
Silly putty.
What stretches and stretches?
Silly putty.
What picks up pictures from a newspaper and makes them silly? And if you stretch it, even sillier.
Silly putty.
Are you sure Silly Putty can do all those things?
Yes, silly putty is fun.
Silly Putty comes in a shell shaped like an egg. Nothing else is Silly Putty.
So, has anybody ever heard of silly putty? It does not matter. As you can see, it's a very interesting chemical compound. It can be stretched, yet when it's molded into a ball, it can actually bounce. So it has both elastic properties as well as those rigid properties. So, and the way it came about, this innovation of this invention was during the Second World War. Uh, the sources for rubber been completely cut off, the Allies, and because all the sources of natural rubber were in Southeast Asia, so that was completely cut off. So US wanted to counter this with artificial rubber. So they asked all the big companies, including GE, etc., Dow Chemicals, GE, to invent, to discover, or make artificial rubber. So there was this gentleman, James Wright, a Scotsman, who was working in a lab, a GE lab in Connecticut, New Haven, Connecticut. And he was just experimenting with different chemicals and added boric acid to silicone oil and created a flexible product. This is exactly what we saw in that ad. And because, as you can well imagine, that such a thing that can be stretched or can bounce, etc., is fantastic, beautiful for a toy, but it has absolutely no practical rubber-like properties. So GE never exploited it. So they abandoned it. Another company, actually, it turns out the Crayola company, the ones that make crayons, they took it over and they made it into this. There was a person who actually took it to them, but anyway, they made it into this little thing called Silly Putty. Became quite popular. I've actually played with it when I was a kid, and it was it's really fun to play with. But anyway, so that was an unexpected innovation. They were able to exploit it, which is really nice. But most of the innovations that we are talking about today are deliberate. The first one, again, I'm an aerospace engineer, so I gravitate towards innovations that are related to aerospace. I'll give you something from my field. So on the left, you can see, I don't know, does anybody know what that is? Well, it's India's own LCA. So that is a delta wing. It's called the light compact aircraft that India developed. It's got a GE engine in it, but it's one of the most advanced fighters today that we have. That is in 2017, that video. Right now, I don't know if you have heard that the government Indian Air Force just put in an order for 83 more of these fighters with HAL. And this revolution started only 114 years ago from this date, which is in 1903. And in 1908, this is what it looked like. So the reason I bring that up is because this was an example of an innovation that was extremely deliberate. The Wright brothers, who essentially invented heavier than air flight, went about it in a very methodical manner. They provided means to individually warp the wings so that they could control it. That was key to the flight. They separated the lifting mechanism from the thrust mechanism. In other words, they had two propellers that provided thrust, which is how all aircraft work today. And the lift, what kept the aircraft in the air, was provided by the wings. They actually researched airfoil shape in wind tunnels, which was very unique. And do you know what the Wright brothers were before they became the inventors of aircraft? They were bicycle mechanics. So, but they were very willing to go beyond what they were trained to do. And they also developed a lightweight engine made of aluminum just for this plane. That's how they optimized the entire, the aircraft, and they managed to fly. And the first flight ever was on December 17th, 1903. In my opinion, one of the most innovative things, technical things in the world ever. Here's another one that is from when I was growing up. I don't know if this ad even exists. So I don't know if any one of you has ever heard this one, but this was all the rage when I was growing up.
I hear, sir. I hear.
So in '69, Karsan Bhai Patel, who was a chemical lab technician near Ahmedabad, made a detergent in his backyard. His innovation was that he had it mostly free of phosphates, so that it was friendlier to the environment. And more than anything else, it was a third the price of what was available. In fact, the market was dominated by multinational brands like Hindustan Liver, which made, I think, Surf. And that was going for 13 rupees a kilo. And Patel Bhai made something for 3 rupees a kilo, and within 10 years had become essentially dominated the market. So here was a deliberate attempt to solve a problem, and the problem was obviously, it was ridiculously expensive those days. So he made something, and it turned out to be even a better product and friendlier to the environment. And it was supported by this wonderful advertising campaign that I showed you part of this. And these were long ads on TV and in front of before movies and all that we used to see. So that's another example. And this is one thing this is also technical to an extent, but not an engineering marvel. And the final example I'm going to give you is from my own personal about 10 years ago, I had a problem with my car. The bearing had gone on it, and I went out and bought a bearing, which was all sealed. And when I tried to put it in, it wouldn't fit the shaft. And I looked up YouTube, and it told me that I had to buy this fancy torque wrench that would allow me to press fit it. So I thought, I don't have the money to do that. Don't even have the time to order that. So what could I do? How can I be innovative? Well, I had one thing at home that could help, and that was a toaster oven. So essentially all I needed was to make the bearing case a little larger than the shaft that it was on, going to fit onto. So The only problem was that this bearing had grease in it. So I had to be very careful that I didn't heat it up to such an extent that the grease started melting. So I put it in the oven. And after a little while, I ran to the, took it, used oven mitten, took it to the cart, and it slid right in. It was very, very satisfying. So I don't know if you call it innovative, but certainly was a problem solving. In my opinion, a good example of problem solving. It worked very well. However, the car didn't work that well. I had to sell it. Actually, I had to trash it in a couple of years after that. Anyway, so those are 4 examples of innovative and 3 of really problem solving examples that you can use. So let me just wrap it up and we'll open it up for questions. There is no shortcut to success. I'm sure you've heard this. Yeah, there are some examples of where you got lucky, but for the most part, 90%, 99%, you have to work hard to get to your to be a success, especially with startups and things like that. It's very, very difficult. Be open to new information and knowledge. I've said that again. I can't stop emphasizing that. Do not be shy to ask others. You would be surprised how helpful people can be. You can approach people, and if they don't, that's fine. Go to the next person. A lot of people would love to share information, so use that. But don't be too naive. Try and assess why your startup or your innovation or your new product would be successful. Just because you had a great idea doesn't mean the others think that it is a great idea. However, having said that, don't spend too much time in analysis. There's a time to study and there's a time to act. And soon you have to act, and that's important. Also, more than anything else, do not be scared of failure. I'm sure you've heard this before. 80 to 90% of the ideas do not succeed. Products do not succeed. In fact, I think 50% fail in the first year. So that's perfectly okay. Do not be discouraged. Learn from your mistakes. Just try not to repeat them. And while I've emphasized problem solving, I've emphasized innovation from deliberate problem solving. Certainly be on the lookout for unexpected opportunities. That's very important. Like Silly Putty. Okay. There are examples, other examples, the Mumbai Dabbawalas, that's a very good innovative system. I'm sure some of you have studied that. Infosys has a great history. There are many other examples in fact, in Bangalore itself. So go around, ask people, and I'm sure they'll help you. Okay, that's really all I have. Questions?
Maybe we can close the screen
Sure.
so that they can see you.
Okay. You want me to open my video?
Yeah.
Can you see me now? Let me
Yes.
stop sharing. Okay.
Yes.
Question. I've got the chat open as well in case somebody wants to type a question.
Yeah, you can either write in the chat box or unmute yourself and directly ask Ravi.
Or don't ask.
Ravi, you have been in this
I
field
just
of
said you should ask. Don't be shy of asking. Did
Probably
you
I'll
learn
start-
nothing from this talk?
Probably they are thinking and trying to innovate something.
So I have a question, Ravi. You were
Yes.
speaking about innovation when it came to the product. can there be innovation in other areas besides product?
Oh yeah, in process, that's the other big thing that everybody, in fact, this whole Six Sigma movement is all about innovations in processes and in manufacturing systems. Again, I unfortunately keep jumping to technical answers, but yeah, there are lots of great innovations in processes which are not necessarily products. So some reduce the amount of waste in your life by using some of these techniques. And yeah, there are thousands and thousands of examples of how you can improve your processing to reduce waste, to increase throughput, to reduce downtime. In fact, most of what I do is about using diagnostics and prognostics techniques to improve the uptime of aerospace systems. Cars going in the background. Anything else? Anybody else?
I think entire field, all the fields are, I think, going through a churning right now with the AI in being there.
Yes.
That is next thing is what they are saying. Even the field of ours, like chartered accountancy or a law firm, is all kind of getting into the main mundane activities are all going into the AIs and machine learnings and all these things. So that is the next level of innovations where people have to be very watchful of.
Yeah, actually, we are doing that within aerospace as well. And
okay. I think one of your books is also about that, I guess.
It's about electric aircraft, not about AI, but I am working with the University of Connecticut on AI systems.
Okay.
So Gopi Krishna asks, if you got an idea, it will take a lot of money to keep in the way. So that time, should we do it if we are poor? Good question. I don't know what government programs there are. Maybe the Rotary Club can help. But you have a good idea. I don't think anybody can stop you, Gopi. Come up with a good idea and then approach Narayan Murthy. I'm sure he'll fund you.
No, there are a lot of universities which are promoting these innovative ideas, robotics, and all these things. Yes, so I mean, it's just that you have to hit the headline somewhere in one of these, and this media will actually promote you like the next big thing. So it's something that you have to get a small spark.
Don't let money stop you. Come up with a good idea, and then there'll be lots of avenues open to you.
Don't think your ideas are poor. So ideas are always definitely rich. So you will have to be confident yourself.
Karsan Bhai Patel was not a rich man when he started Nirma. Within 10 years, he ruled the detergent market in India. So I don't know if you watched that movie about the Ambanis. Their father wasn't particularly rich when he started.
True.
Yeah, there are lots and lots of examples of people who are poor. Idea is important. There.
Ravi, yesterday we had a long discussion on innovation, problem solving. How would you sort of distinguish between these terms? Because sometimes we actually use it interchangeably.
Well, I mean, according to me, innovation is a way to change a product or come up with a new one. You could come up with something that has no problem solving potential at all. Silly Putty was an example where it made a lot of money. There wasn't any problem to be solved. Well, initially there was a problem to be solved, which was artificial rubber, but ultimately it was an innovation without really a benefit to anybody except kids. So yeah, I mean that's one way of distinguishing the two, I suppose. But a lot of innovation comes about when you have a problem, a concrete problem to be solved. There's no doubt about
Right.
it. So, yeah, intersection is huge.
Okay, thank you. That silly putty reminded me of that movie Flubber.
Yes, I don't know if that was inspired by Silly Putty, but it very well could have been. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, GE is a big innovator of. I used to work for the lab that did this work, so they actually do work with silicon a lot. So this was one of them that they used the silicon. It came up with something else, but they moved on. Somebody else made the money out of it.
Okay.
KLE. Shreya says, writing a book or any contents can also be considered an innovation. No, not at all. Oh my God, no. Technical only because I am lacking in.
John Babu Kadri BIN.
Are you there, Ravi? Mithun?
I think we have some issue with this network, I guess. So we lost him in between.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just wait for a minute for him to connect back. Can't hear you, Ravi.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I had a problem.
Yeah.
I had to change my hotspot.
Okay.
Okay, I can see some. Okay, no, it was all about me dropping out. All right, I'm back. Any questions?
Yeah. So you were telling Shreya about the book.
Yes. Shreya, yes. If you have an idea for writing a book, that's very innovative too, obviously. I don't know what else to say. No. Shreya, if you have an idea, please just write it down.
Yeah. There is a question from Reshma. Are you able to read it?
No, I can't see it.
Okay. Let me call it out. For innovation, one must need a lot of information and exposure to a lot of different things. But what if Sorry, but what if one doesn't get a chance to experience different things as yet?
No, that's a very good question. But let's say that you don't need to know about everything. Just start with what you know. As I don't know if this is something that you used to tell me about buying stocks and in the market. Always start with what you know, what you feel for. So that's then you can expand to other fields. But if you are in a certain area, just use that knowledge, use that information to try and innovate. Don't worry about other things. I mean, if you're a chartered accountant, don't worry about gas turbine engines. That makes no sense. And vice versa, if you're an aerospace engineer, I don't think you'd be particularly good at innovating in chartered accountancy. So start local, start small.
Right.
Sometimes sometimes you see the problem as very small. It may be one of the largest problems which others may be facing. So you may be the right person to actually innovate something. So it's all there. It is just that you have to have an eye of that detail or identifying this problem.
Don't be afraid of failure.
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, that's how the society treats you. The failures are actually highlighted like anything where you are not very comfortable in innovating.
Nah, it's changing. I don't
it's
think
changing.
today failure. In fact, what I heard was in Silicon Valley, they at interviews they ask you how many things have you failed at rather than what you have succeeded at.
True. I mean, the world's
Have you
right
learned
now,
from?
yeah. The world's richest people right now are the failures, actually, school dropouts, and so you see where the examples are coming from.
That is true. I don't think Bill Gates got a degree.
Yeah, he doesn't want to know. So there's nothing that he needs in life apart from that. Yeah, true.
I don't know if any of the Ambani brothers have degrees either.
Right. See, sometimes you see, Ravi, that there is one startup that comes up with a very innovative, different idea, but it is immediately followed by 10, 20 other startups who are able to ape or copy that same idea and do it even better.
Right.
I mean, how do you sort of cope up with all this?
Well, I mean, in my field, patenting is one way of stopping that. It's not, I mean, especially with, I don't know what kind of laws there are that can prevent you, but if there is a great idea and you can patent it, that can prevent people from actually, they'll at least stop them. Now, other than that, you have the advantage of being the first to market. That always helps. And then, unfortunately, you just have to keep on innovating. In other words, you just have to keep on changing that. Why do you think Office has a update Office doesn't, but they're well established. But some other software product, they keep coming up with an update every day.
Right.
So that they're always ahead of the competition. I mean, Telegram, that's one that, thanks to the WhatsApp debacle in this month, I think they've got almost 500 million, 500 million people signing up. But before that, they were very, very innovative. They were almost every week, every month, they would come up with a change, an update. So you have to, I mean, there is no easy answer to this. Patenting is one way to prevent initial competition, but after that, it's all about staying ahead of your competition.
Right. Thank you.
Very quiet today, huh?
Yeah. I mean, they're usually not like this.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Probably a topic which they are still yet to digest in terms of, I mean, innovation is something which is not, as you said, 90% of them fail. Those 10% are the ones which who succeed. It is just that we will have to see who will be out of this group will be this innovative one. Yeah.
I mean, we think of Thomas Edison as being one of the most innovative people in the world. That number of materials, compounds, metals he tried for the first light bulb. I think thousands and thousands before he got to the tungsten that he used finally. In fact, interestingly, the lab that I used to work at GE, when you walk in the door, there was a little lamp that Edison's first lamp was there. Well, I mean, that's what they told us. I'm sure it has been replaced, but it's a very interesting thing. They had the lamp there, it was glowing. And because Edison started GE, General Electric.
Oh, okay.
Many people don't know that. So yeah, in the research labs at GE, they have the first Edison bulb, a replica of it. But yeah, so no, it's like I said, there's no shortcuts to success. It's hard work, and it's technical in engineering, but just as well in other fields. A lot of hard work.
right. I mean, one thing that you see is probably the West is a lot more innovative. They come up with a lot more newer products compared to countries like India and so on. The technical talent is very good in India. We always say that we haven't come out with new products.
Well, so they used to say the same thing about China. They used to say that these people cannot innovate, they just copy. The number of inventions and patents coming out of China today exceeds that from the US. So it's a question of education, it's a question of technical entrepreneurship, not just entrepreneurship, apprenticeship, getting people thinking technically. And we have in India so much more advantage in some ways. But I don't know. I guess we have started to take advantage of it, but for the longest time we didn't. So, I mean, we can think as well as anybody else. I don't know why we cannot innovate. Of course we can.
No, probably I would say India is more a technically driven country where people are being educated technically rather than vocationally. I would say that because when you come out of the college, you know mostly theory, not the practical side of it. So you are not really employable as such. And then you get into that stream of learning for the next 3-4 years or 5 years. By the time you would have lost that urge to invent, urge to do that whole process, and you are getting into a life which is more driven by your this thing. So I would say
by putting food on the table. No, but I don't agree that that you lose the urge. That comes internally. I don't care. I mean, look again. I bring up Patel. The guy worked at several companies as a chemical technician, lab technician. But he kept thinking about things to do, how to innovate, how to make things cheaper. I'm sure there are lots of people out there who have the same urges. Question is, do we give them the opportunity? And I don't know, maybe organizations like yours can help.
Okay.
true.
Very quiet. Okay, that's okay.
Students, please feel free.
Or we can give people 10 minutes back.
Ravi, what was your role when you, what was your subject when you did the PhD in University of Minnesota?
Well, I did it in electrical engineering, but it was really controls.
Okay.
I'm basically a mechanical engineer.
And the other discussion that we had probably during the last week was none of the mechanical engineers work in their fields and they go on to different fields, is what we understood from various people who spoke. Am I right, Suman?
Well, we claim mechanical engineers can do anything.
Yeah, that's what the same words were used by the other speaker also. What is this PHM society, Ravi?
Oh, prognostics and health management. That's, you look at data and you figure out what is the health of a system to make an assessment of its health and see when it's going to fail. That's prognosis. Or if it has failed, what is the problem? That's diagnosis. So a lot of, I've worked in jet engines pretty much all my life. So jet engines have a lot of analytics in them that allow you to diagnose problems that happen so that we can schedule repairs and maintenance ahead of time. In fact, the LCA has a lot of PHM in it already. Light combat aircraft that I showed the video of. The chief scientist of that is a good friend of mine, Dr. Kota Harinarayana, who's retired now. But you should talk to him. You should get him to talk about innovation. He's now started up a company that, after being the head of ADA and others, and being the father of LCA, he's now has a small startup that makes unmanned air vehicles.
Okay.
Yeah, you should invite Kota to talk to you.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Nice.
Popular, there are a lot of new innovative ideas every day because it's getting increasingly hard to discover. That is very true. That, Reshma, is very true. There's almost no idea that has not been thought of before. But it will happen. I mean, there are local problems that you need to solve that nobody else has any idea about. So it's that way. It's better to concentrate on things that affect you every day, because you'll come up with ideas. Much easier to come up with ideas about things that are local to you, that affect you, that affect your friends, affect your family, than to try and solve the world's problems.
True.
Right.
I don't know, Reshma, you think that's understood that? I bet she's furiously typing an answer. Okay.
The books that you've written, Ms. Ravi, are more of technical in nature, or are these?
Yeah, they're all technical. All engineering oriented.
Okay.
Though I must say the one on electric aircraft is something that anybody can read because it doesn't have any equations or anything. It's more a history and practice and the technology in electric aircraft. It's open to anybody. It doesn't have that much technology in it. But yeah, it is fundamentally a technical tool. No, actually, Rashma, it's very easy to come up with something that already exists. It's difficult to come up with something that doesn't exist. I think that's what you mean.
Yeah, I think she meant that. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm joking. Okay, shall we
All right. Yeah.
quit?
Fine.
Anything else? Should we wrap up? Any final questions, anyone?
Ravi, if you have your email or something, you can just mention there so that they can reach you in case they have any things to clarify.
You have my email address, don't you, Suman?
Yeah, so we'll just put it up here.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess that's it.
Actually, don't use that one. Use this. All right. I just put it in the chat box.
Right, right. So what do you do in RR2 consulting?
I work on aerospace problems.
Okay, so it's confined only to aerospace.
Well, I mean, aerospace manufacturing, technical engineering problems. I don't have much expertise in anything else. What in the US they call a nerd. That's what I am.
Thanks a ton, Ravi. Pleasure having you with us.
No.
Let's see who will be the innovative lot out of
Yeah,
this.
that's good. Once you make your millions, just drop me a line.
Yeah,
I inspired you.
yeah, definitely. You can never be sure that sometimes this can be an inspiration as well. Yeah, definitely.
I agree.
Wonderful to have you. Suman, you will wrap it up.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Ravi. Thank you, students, for joining in. So let's meet tomorrow, 4 p.m. again. We have a life skills trainer who will talk to us on goal setting. So look forward to having you all tomorrow. And as we sort of head towards our countdown, we will also start seeking your feedback, which will help us to improvise and come up with even better programs during our next webinar series. Thank you so much, everyone, and see you all tomorrow same time.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, students.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Suman. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mithun. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.